The first call came into the Everett Police Department at approximately 18:25, well, that would be 6:25 this evening. Okay, someone there.
Everett Police.
Right.
Okay.
Someone there, well, a friend of Pete Peters, why can't I remember his name? Jerry, called the Seattle Flight Center. Okay, when he called the Seattle Flight Center, they had already seen, or they were seeing the object at the time. Seattle Flight Center at the same time was in touch with high brass in Washington, D.C.
They called Seattle Flight Center and they were in touch. Did they have the object under observation?
They did at the time. I don't know if they had it exactly at that time, but when the object was reported, a call was made to Seattle Flight Center. They claimed, Seattle Flight Center said that they saw it, or they were in the process of seeing it, and they were in touch with Washington, D.C.
Okay.
The object was seen as far as Alberta, Canada, was seen as far east as Spokane, and other cities across the state.
It was seen as far north?
Well, as far north as Alberta, Canada. It was seen as far east as Spokane. Okay, now, Jerry called Payne Field, and he was notified that Payne Field had the object under observation for 3 minutes. He then called the Whidbey Island Naval Station, talked to whoever he talked to there. They said they had the object under observation for approximately 5 minutes. A helicopter pilot also saw the object. He estimated the object at between 3,000 to 5,000 feet.
Is this the NAS?
I think so. The general description.
3 to 5,000?
Yeah, and there's a big problem there, okay?
This is visual
estimate.
Okay.
Okay, now the object was described as being very bright orange, giving off sparks and flames, just like the other one last year.
Bright orange.
Okay, George, just a minute.
Giving off sparks and flames.
Okay. Now, as I understand it, Whidbey Island tried to get the object on radar. Nothing showed.
No radar.
The object had a flat trajectory, traveling from west to east. According to witnesses, they followed the object intermittently through the cloud layer that was swirling around. And the last thing they saw was the object looked like it just exploded or broke into pieces. Okay.
Was there any audible sound?
No sound reported.
Okay.
Although hundreds and hundreds of witnesses on bases. Coast Guard also cited it, and that's all he said about that aspect of it. They said they don't know how many witnesses there are, except that they've been getting calls and people on the bases. There's a lot of witnesses on the bases.
This is coming into, you're speaking of calls into Snohomish County Radio Central.
All over, through all the...
And you're headed from Canada down.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the preliminaries that he got in, 20 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
He's going to check further. He wanted to know if I should check this out, and I told him, indeed, try to check him out. And I told him something, and I believe this. It seems that these fireball-type sightings always are followed by a flap.
Yeah.
And I told him to watch it. You know, I think that may be indicative of a flap. I told him
there's more to it than that, because this thing was seen for, like you say, for 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, see, there's the problem, see. The estimate is for an object to be seen for 3 or 5 minutes, and the witnesses said it was traveling very slow.
Yeah.
It would have either had to be really high and extremely huge, or very low, or medium, 3 to 5,000 feet, and going slow. And it ain't no goddamn bolide. So that's it. He's going to call me tomorrow night. There may be some witnesses down here at the Seattle Flight Center who may want to talk. And I'm going to go down and do some investigations on that. And he's going to do some more checking tonight. He'll either call me tomorrow, but when he comes here on Sunday, he may have most of the report all typed up. He's calling Heineck off on that.
Okay.
And that's it.
Very good.
Okay, we'll see you later.
Right.
Bye. Just right during the news, and I was looking, the couch faces the window, and I just glanced out the window because I noticed this bright, glowing object, like, it wasn't an airplane. I knew that because they have those mercury lights in them that are really bright lights, and I've been out with my cousin, and he's a lieutenant commander in the Navy. You know, seen his flight plans and training films, and I knew it was an airplane. And I looked at it, and I saw what appeared to be sparks spitting out of the back of it. So immediately, what I thought it was a plane in distress on low power, which would cause the lights to dim, and it was on fire. And I looked at it, and I started walking towards the window. I got up, and I went to go out on the lanai, and it was gone. I saw it glow. It looked like it was heading south it looked like it was heading south for about 2 seconds, and then it turned east immediately, and it accelerated. And a lot of sparks were coming out of the back immediately when it started heading east.
That's when it started to accelerate. You saw the sparks.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was for about 3.5 seconds.
And then that was it.
And that was it. Then I opened the lanai door, and it was gone. Everything, the sky was clear, and then I saw about 5 minutes later, either a helicopter or an airplane begin to circle the area in which I saw it.
The plane did move into the area.
Yes, I think either a plane or some type of helicopter. It was kind of like north of Ballard.
I see.
It seemed like that's about the location where the plane was.
Okay, fine. We heard about a helicopter being out there. We didn't know exactly where it was at. Okay, can we get one of our investigators to call you up later for a little more extensive information on this?
That'd be perfectly okay. The best time to call me would probably be around 8 or 9 in the evening, because I'm always home and I'm always awake.
Very good.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Did you want to say something else?
No, I was going to mention if you needed any references or anything, right?
Oh, that would be necessary.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for calling.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry to bother you.
Not at all.
Just had a call that I thought you might want to log in up in Vancouver, off Vancouver. I just had a call from a guy in Vancouver Island, on Vancouver Island.
Okay.
And they saw the same thing.
Beautiful.
They saw the same thing just off Vancouver Island. They thought it looked like a plane on fire. It was just very fiery and quite streaky. And so we called in to report it, so I figured since I'd saved the call and send the money and call you instead.
Beautiful. What's the man's name? get a call from a senior at Queen Anne High School who lives on right overlooking the water on Queen Anne Hill, and he saw the thing over the sound.
Oh, yeah, right?
And it was maneuvering at the time, and then by the time he got to the window, the thing had turned east and just shot away like a bullet.
I'll be damned. Well, it looks like there's more than one then.
I think so. It appears that way.
I'll be damned.
And usually this sort of thing over the past, we've experienced that other areas that have had similar widespread sightings, which appear to be fireball type activity, are usually followed up with extensive activity in the future.
I'll be damned. Okay, well listen, I'll talk to you later then.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Fruits for the field team.
Yeah.
And I received a call at home while I was at work, and I thought I'd call back, and I called his home phone. There was no answer, so I called the line on the card because I guess he's got a hot sighting going someplace, and I thought he might need me.
Yeah, are you one of the parties that has a CB radio?
Yes.
Okay, well, we had an object go over the Pacific Northwest tonight about 6:25. We've been getting reports from as far north as Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta, and east to Spokane and south to the Dalles, Oregon. And apparently there's more than one object involved here. And I was just on the other line talking to a newsman, and he says that citizens band people are picking up quite a bit of information. And apparently something's going on over around Tacoma right now.
Yeah, well, we've got a CB set up here at home, and we've been monitoring off and on, but we've got 23 channels to scan, and we can't really pick out which one the action's on right now.
Right. Okay, I'll get back to you if I get anything important. Give me a call, too.
Oh, incidentally, I brought up to Jake the other day an idea of contacting some of the local radio stations like KJR, who did the big deal on the car statement.
Yes.
And possibly KOL, although they're not really that into it. But when I heard, I believe yesterday in the morning, an interview with you on KOL, and when I called KJR this morning for an appointment with Chet Rogers, they said you'd been in contact with them.
Yes, I have.
Oh, I see. Well, would there be any point in me going ahead and making contact with them then? Jake gave me a bunch of promo material to pass out. So I was just wondering if I should go ahead and make contact with them myself.
Well, they're pretty well up on it down there.
I see.
Yeah. I think you probably save yourself a little time.
Yeah. No, time I got plenty of.
Oh.
Anyway, that's basically it. I didn't get a chance to talk to Jake. I've been trying to get set up on a schedule so we can all get together and meet. You know, with
yes, I know he's talking about that.
Yeah, and I just got screwed up on my hours at work, so I'm not sure just when we'll all be able to get together and go at once. It looks like right now that after 8 o'clock on a weekday night, it'll be just about the only time we'll be able to get together. Because I'm working kind of a split swing shift.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll get in touch with you. I'm a little bit confused here tonight, boy. I've been going from phone to phone. And
yeah. Well, if you do get a sighting, say in the South Seattle area, none of us have too much gas right now, but if you do get a good valid sighting in the South Seattle area, give us a ring, because we got, well, if nothing else, we can siphon gas from 2 cars to put into a third and get someplace.
Fine.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Lewiston County Sheriff's Department.
Good morning. This is Bob Gerbil of Phenomena Research in Seattle, Washington. What kind of information or recent information do you have on the so-called meteor impact area near McKinnon?
It was in Lewis County, down by Chehalis.
Oh, Lewis County.
Yeah, you want me to give you the phone number?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Do you have the approximate location of that?
Well, evidently it was somewhere near the county line, and all I had was we did have a complaint at, about, let's see, 8 o'clock last night, and it said in the tonal area, which is in our county, but it turned out to be south of that. So I don't really know. Evidently it was, you know where the steam plant is down there in Lewis County?
Yes.
Evidently it was 10 to 15 miles west of that. But that's just, you know, hearsay information. I really don't have anything definite.
Okay, thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
City Radio, Don speaking.
News department, please.
This is the news department.
Okay, this is Bob Gribble of Phenomena Research in Seattle, Washington.
All right.
We would like to get a little information on that so-called fireball seen in your area last night.
Okay, I'll tell you what I know, but it ain't much.
Okay.
You want to ask me questions?
Well,
Phenomena Research?
right.
That sounds cool. Is it something like Believe It or Not, or?
Oh, no, we specifically investigate UFO reports.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really interesting. Okay, like I say, do you want to ask me questions, or you want me to tell you what I know, which is...
Well, tell me what you know first.
Okay, the Lewis County Sheriff's Department is probably the most local person that talks to me about it and that's willing to say that they know anything. And they tell me that last night, McCord Air Force Base Air Approach called them and said that one of their planes had seen an impact in Lewis County and that they saw a fire on the ground at that spot. They reported that they had seen it something like 7:35 p.m. and that it was on a line between McKenna and Cinnabar. Somewhere between those two, they said that it looked like it was about 3 miles north of Cinnabar and 13 miles south of McKenna.
Okay.
The Sheriff's Department says that makes it within a circle radius of something like 30-mile radius circle. I guess McCord sent a chopper to look around, but I guess clouds took over, so they just had to give up the search. And according to the sheriff, again, no search has been going on since that time, but the Sheriff's Department says they're going to send their chopper, the Sheriff's chopper, out at 10 o'clock to look around that spot, see if they can find any fire or anything.
Okay. Have you had any calls?
Okay. Personally, the only calls that I've had is from other radio stations asking, what do you know?
I see.
I haven't had a single person call and say, we saw something. And the Sheriff's Department just told me that they hadn't had a single person call, a civilian and say, we saw this thing, what's going on?
Yes.
A plane crash or anything like that.
Okay.
As far as that goes, I heard a tape on another radio station. They played a man they said was an FAA official saying that people said that they'd seen it all the way up into Canada and that, all around the state of Washington people had seen a fireball.
Yes.
But like I say, I've got no calls here. Neither is the other radio station. They just told me the other radio station they're talking about. They say they heard from no one other than other radio station.
Okay, we are in search of witnesses to this thing in your area. Is there any chance of getting any kind of a blurb on your news?
That you are? Yeah, I'd say so. I'm probably going to be in search of myself, because that'd be the only thing that I'd have, to tell people that somebody said they saw it.
Okay. Right.
You haven't discovered any yet, have you?
Oh, yes.
You have?
We were flooded with calls last night.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, everywhere from 6:15 to about 7:45 reported sighting.
I guess the reason, or I would assume the reason, maybe you can, verify this, would be why that not so many people called around here is that because where it fell is just an extremely, nobody lives there. Miles of logging roads is all in there.
Yes.
Out in the hills.
Well, we had, like I say, many individual sightings here, and many of them at low-level altitudes around the Seattle area.
Yeah. Have you heard from anybody from Lewis County?
No, I called there, and I couldn't get any information at all.
By Lewis County, have you heard any citizens from Lewis County calling?
No.
Okay, Mr. Gribble. Well, hope you find something. Hope I do too. might call back. Like I say, I will probably be, if they don't find anything, I'll probably be going down to the area myself, see if I can find anybody who says he saw it.
Okay, swell. Thanks a lot.
Okay, you are.
Thanks.
Fire was reported sighted from a number of scattered locations, including Costco, Yakima, Spokane, Tomato, and Whidbey Islands, and unconfirmed reports as far north as Edmonton, Alberta. Two pilots stated the fireball broke up at approximately 7:50 p.m. Thursday evening, and moments later, several small fires were observed on the ground 13 miles south of McKenna, Washington. Another pilot stated there was a definite crater or hole caused by impact, with fires around the perimeter. Lewis County Sheriff personnel intend trying to reach the site this a.m. I was laying on the Devonport, sort of half watching TV. It must have been around 8:30, somewhere like that. I didn't really pay too much attention at the time. I just noticed and said, "Gee, there's a shooting star," and I never see him. My husband always sees all these, and I just have to glance up, but it was awful bright, but not real big.
Yes.
I did see it fall, and it was over in the, I believe, kind of in the Cinnabar, or, well, from the angle I was looking at, it was southeast of where I'm 5 miles north of Onalaska, and it was, it wasn't really a heck of a big one, though, but it was bright as it is.
Okay, what direction was it traveling?
It came from the south, and kind of at an angle, kind of came northeast or something.
South to northeast?
I believe it was. It seemed like it was kind of at an angle it was coming. It didn't seem to be extremely, it seemed like it was almost straight up, really, from it. But it was at an angle of northeast.
I see, okay. Okay, well, we sure appreciate your calling.
Yeah, I never realized it until a guy from the county called me this morning. He's going to come out and check my drainage, and he said they're looking for a meteorite. And I said, I seen it fall, and he said, you did? And I was listening to the news, and it said to call,
yes,
and let you know. So I reading, and it just was kind of a surprise. I mean, I never seen anything fall like that before.
Yes. Okay. And if you ever see anything again in the future, be sure to give us a call.
Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Going on near Unibar, east of the Healers, an Army helicopter did spot a crater with fire burning around it last night after the fireball went down. The FAA says it must have been pretty good size because they usually burn up before they hit the ground. We'll have another report within the hour, and maybe by that time, then we'll be at the crash site. These are instant information time, 322. We were hunting last night, or yesterday, and we were at this place down at it was concerning that meteor, whatever it was. And it's on top. It's it's a mountain, really. It's down by Mount Rainier. And it was about whatever time it went over. Yeah, Suntop Lookout Ranger Station. And was 5,000 feet up, and we were trying to start a fire, and we saw it coming from about, way up there, about, way up the mountain, wherever it was from. And we watched it all the way down until it broke up, and we were watching it through binoculars. And we watched it fall in the whole routine. So I was wondering, and we didn't think anything about it until we came home and got this, later this afternoon, and they were talking about it all over the place. So we thought we could have called from you up and see if we had anything that we could use.
Okay, now this is by the Suncott Lookout Station?
Yeah, it's right down by Mount Rainier. It's on 410 going up to Smith Pass. It's on the Huckleberry Creek. You take the Huckleberry Creek exit.
Okay. Now, approximate time, do you have any idea of what?
Well, let's see, we're up at 5,000 feet. It just got dark out. I mean, before you could see the sun still kind of, and it just got dark out. So I would say it's probably about 8:30, whatever time it was. It's up in the
8:30.
Yeah, 9 o'clock.
The reason I ask this is because there are several objects involved.
Yeah, we saw two of them. We just got a glimpse of the second one. But the one we saw was paralleling. They're coming kind of northeast from the mountain. We saw it first, it was at the northeast, and it kind of paralleled the mountain. And it looked like right over Chinook Pass in the Yakima area someplace. It just kind of crumpled up and went down.
Now, you say this was coming from the northeast?
Yes, up from the northeast a little bit. It was more from east.
And kind of running parallel with the mountain range?
Yeah. And it was really strange because we just saw it, and we right away we were looking at it through binoculars. And I don't even know how far away from it we were, but from what we saw, it was flaming, whatever it was, and it had a tail on it. And I thought it was just a king-size skyrocket, but then it couldn't be that. So if that's what it looked like. The tail was about, from where we were, it's about 100 yards long. It's pretty gigantic, and then it looked like a plane chasing it. It was probably Air Force or somebody.
You say it looked like there was a plane chasing it?
Yeah, it looked, it was behind it about, 15 minutes or so, but whatever it was we saw was really boogie. It was really moving right along.
Yeah, and that was just the one or two?
That was the one.
One, okay.
And then we saw it, it got about parallel with it, which is about, I'd say down a little more, about 10 miles more south towards Mount Rainier. We saw it break up. And it went down, and it wasn't flaming anymore, so I think it was whatever it was all out of flame. If you know what I mean.
Right.
It broke up into about, we don't know how many pieces. It was really strange looking. Then we got a glimpse of another one. I think it was the one that everybody's talking about. It's over by Mount Rainier over there.
But this first one was followed by aircraft.
It might have been. We saw, airplane lights were definitely following it.
Yeah.
And within a certain specific area, they were following it. I don't know, 15 minutes or so. They were tracking pretty close, and as soon as we saw it, there was, it's all kinds of airplanes all over the place. And so, that's all we saw, pretty much.
And then this was followed by another object that you saw?
The other object that we saw was coming in a completely different direction.
Okay.
And it was over by, we're between kind of like Enumclaw and Mount Rainier, up on Smith Pass. We're kind of northeast of Mount Rainier. And obviously northeast from us. And we saw one kind of pass between us and Mount Rainier. We just saw a glimpse of it, and then we didn't see anymore. Look, there's another one, and it went down. We didn't see it.
And that was about,
within 10 minutes after the other one.
We'll say about 8:40 then.
Yeah, I don't know if those were the right times, but we thought, right together, they were real close.
Okay, and now on that first one, approximately how long were you watching it?
Oh, how long were we watching? 3 minutes about, I guess. It lasted a long time.
That long?
Yeah.
Okay, now how about that second one?
No, I don't know, about 10 seconds.
That's just a flash by.
Yeah, just a flash by. But the one that we saw was just, it was just coming. It wasn't going down, it wasn't going up, it was just paralleling the top of the mountain, the same elevation all the time, just going right straight across. And then it I was watching through the binoculars laughing, and I just thought, you know, it just kind of got brighter a second, and it just kind of broke up and went down. And that's all we saw. After that, I mean, we saw, you know, just past, you know, that's all we saw. We didn't see anything like that.
Right. No sound?
No, we didn't hear any sound.
Could you hear that aircraft that was falling in?
No, we couldn't. That was being drowned out by an airplane that was going right over the top of us at that time, which I think was the ranger who was checking us out.
Oh.
I could tell you the truth, but the ranger, whoever it was, was going over the top of us, was in a prop plane, and he was pretty loud.
Yeah, they can get pretty noisy.
So he was drowning out the rest of whatever we heard. And whoever was up there in that plane definitely saw it, because if they couldn't have missed it. It was like somebody holding a mask up in the sky. It was really impressive.
Okay, is there any other information you can add to that?
Well,
Not to anyone else that saw it.
Well, me and my friend were there, but he has the same thing. You know, we kind of worked this out before we talked to him.
Oh, we sure appreciate your calling.
Yeah, you know, anything else that, you know, you have any questions or anything, we'd be glad to answer.
Okay, well, if anything comes up, we'll sure be on the phone calling you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you for calling.
Bye.
This is Bob Gribble of Phenomena Research.
Yeah.
I'm calling to get a little bit of information about your sighting last Thursday night.
Okay.
Could you give me the time on that? I believe I forgot to ask you about that.
Okay, the time was about 6 o'clock, I think. I was watching the news. I didn't look at the clock.
About 6 p.m.
Yeah, about that.
And I believe that you said that the color was orange.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really orange. It was, you know, kind of like the fire you see in a fireplace.
I see.
It was kind of that kind of dull color.
Now, are you facing due west in your home, or you through the window that you were seeing?
It's an apartment. I'm facing to the northwest.
Northwest.
Pretty much either way, because it's a wraparound window. The window faces west, and then it faces north.
I see. Okay. Have you, by any chance, heard from anyone else that has seen this thing?
No, none of my friends at school or no one else I know has seen it or saw it or anything. Just from what I heard over the radio.
Yes. Okay, thanks a lot, Gary.
Okay, have they ever found a site where it landed or anything, or where it hit the earth?
No, I don't think they will either.
Yeah, they said that the theory was that by the time it hit the earth, it was about the size of the baseball.
No, well, could be.
Yeah, well, the thing that was weird about it is that it seemed to take a southerly direction, but then it accelerated towards the east. I mean, towards the east.
You're definite about that turn, then.
Yeah. It did. It turned. It turned, accelerated, and then it was gone.
We see how that in itself would eliminate the meteor theory. Because meteors just do not turn. They come in the atmosphere of anywhere from 40 to 140,000 miles an hour. And of course, depending upon their angle of descent, depends on how fast they burn up, but they never change course.
Yeah. It took a right angle turn due east. It's just like it was a jet fighter coming in for a straight, and then just like that same sloping pattern when it was coming in, and then it just took a right angle turn and headed east, just like that. And then during this acceleration, or what appeared to be an acceleration, there were intermittent sparks, or what appeared to be sparks coming out of the tail that were a trail about 3 times as long as the object.
And you're pretty sure that when you first saw it, that it was coming from due north.
It was coming, yes, coming due north, heading south.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye now. And we're interested in getting some information regarding your sighting of a large fireball the night of the 14th.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
I wonder if you could give us a full description of what happened right from the beginning.
Well, let's see. I turned onto the street going to my house, which runs north, and my wife said, look, I looked up and saw not a yellow light, an orange flame ball traveling in the northern sky. From where I was going, it was traveling, looked like a southeasterly direction from where I was at. But I'm not too good on my compass right now. I watched it for a good 3 to 4 minutes from the time I got out of the car, probably a minute before, maybe a half minute before I stopped the car. So I watched it for about 4.5 minutes. And I watched what it seemed to break off. We had one section of flame, then clear sky, and then the major portion of flame. I watched it, and then it faded from sight after about 4 minutes of seeing it.
To the southeast?
Yeah.
Was there a fairly heavy cloud layer at the time, or was this rather...
No, it was crystal clear. I could see all the stars and everything. We were in between clouds and everything, and it was clear all the way up.
There was something mentioned on KJR radio about you contacting would-be air station.
I contacted over there air operations, see if we'd lost an aircraft, and we had all our aircraft accounted for, and I was talking to the lieutenant commander there. I can't remember his name offhand, but he was observing it from the air operations tower.
Yes.
And he called radar real quick, and they weren't able to pick anything up. I don't know whether it was just too far or what, but they were unable to pick anything up off of it.
Now, when you called him, had you concluded your sighting at the time? I mean, had it gone out of sight to
yes,
you?
Yes, it had been out of sight to me for maybe 4 minutes from the time I finished driving home to the time I got to the phone.
And then you went in and called this commander, and he said that he was watching it, or he had watched it?
He had watched it.
He had watched it, okay. And that appeared to be heading southeast. Did it appear to go over the Cascades, or was there too much cloud cover to tell?
Well, I don't really... It was heading towards the Cascades. I guess from where it was at, it was in that area of being to the Cascades. I haven't lived here too long. I'm not too familiar with the area around here. But it might have been 60 miles at the maximum from where I was at, maybe closer.
I see. Was this, which I know visual estimates are hard to tell, but was this fairly high in the sky to you? About what degree would you say it was elevation?
I'd say I was looking at about 10 o'clock, maybe 10:15 in the sky. It wasn't real high. She was spreading more along the 30, 40 degrees above the horizon.
I see. Was it quite large? This is hard to tell, too.
Yeah. Let's see. From previous meteorites, whatever I've seen, it was extremely large. It was, I'd estimate, maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles long. The flame trail was.
Yes.
The actual head of it I couldn't tell, but the flame was maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles long.
And no change of direction at all while you had it under observation?
No, I just kept noticing that it kept flying horizontally. Instead of diagonally like most meteorites, it was going horizontally. That's what made me think of maybe an aircraft, because I've seen them fly horizontally a long time while I'm flying.
Yes.
So.
And the exact time was about 6:20, you say?
6:20, yeah, thereabouts, because I remember I just returned from the store, and I left the store at 6:15.
Have you talked to anyone else who has seen it in your area?
I've tried to find a few other people. We have a lieutenant commander in my squadron who was in the air at that time and observed it for a while.
I see.
And
are you in the Navy now?
yes, I am.
Well, I was just wondering, had you reported it officially, or have you kind of kept it to yourself?
Well, I called my squadron and, did an air operation. And our squadron had, they called some outfit in North Dakota. I can't remember what it was. Something to do with, the observation of these things.
Yeah.
Our skipper called that.
Probably NORAD.
But, other than calling the news station, I wasn't able to catch the number for the research center down there.
Yes.
To call them.
Well, I sure appreciate your talking to me. If we sent you a questionnaire, would you take the time to fill it out?
Sure, certainly.
It's quite brief, but we'd like to get this on record. We have other reports of things for the same evening, and we're trying to correlate the flight directions and the times so we can see what we've got, whether it's one or more objects.
One or more objects.
Right.
Yeah.
Just in case you should see something else in the future or hear of anything being seen.
Oh, yeah. I've seen things before in other locations in Southern California in the desert. But this is the first one I've seen up here.
And is there anything else you can add to this?
No, not that I can think of. I thought they had an approximate location where she went down.
Well, this is a different case.
Oh.
This took place at 7:50 the same night.
Oh, the one that went down?
Right.
They observed at 7:50?
Right.
And I observed one at
6:20.
At 6:20.
Right. And one was also observed in eastern Washington, approximately 6:25. So we got ourselves a little jigsaw puzzle here.
Yeah. I think I'll get some of my books out. They aren't expecting any meteorite swarms that I know of in this area.
There was a meteor shower due, but then the flight characteristics there would rule out a meteor anyway.
Yeah, that's what bugged me. Do meteorites don't travel horizontally, do they?
No way.
That's what I thought.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
I was in a private aircraft with two other guys coming back from Walla Walla. And we were on instruments, so we were at about 12,000 feet. And shortly after for being on instruments, we were in constant contact with radio, and perfectly clear up there. And just we passed Rainier on our left, and we're just going to begin our descent into the clouds on the right. We were on a trajectory. If you drew a line from Yakima, we were over the Yakima airport, and then took that vector right on in. So you draw a line from Yakima to Seattle. We were proceeding not quite northwest, kind of a west-northwest direction.
Yeah.
Just we went a little beyond Rainier, and just we know the location. Another guy, Craig Sly, knows it better than I do because he's doing the navigation, but he was beyond a 625 checkpoint, and it was before 635 when we checked again. We went back over the flight plan. Off to the right and to the kind of front of the airplane, which we could trying to go back and looking at a trajectory, say somewhere over Vancouver Island or up in the island someplace, maybe toward Marysville.
Yeah.
It was a rather bright object, like a moon color, white or yellowish white ball. At first they thought it was a bright afterburner, but it started to increase in size where it got about, not quite 90 degrees off to our right, somewhere up toward Baker. It appeared as a white ball with a tight D-shaped cone of multicolored red, blue, yellow sparks. Or it kind of looked to me like a comet.
Yes.
A ball and then a space of a little bit, and then all these fantastic colors following it. We followed it. They followed it a little bit longer. They estimate they may have had it in view a minute, 5, 10 seconds. I figured I had it in view about 45 seconds when they called because they saw it a while, and they said, "My, it's right after burner," and I didn't pay much attention. They said, "God, look at that!" And then we followed it, and it was right off our right wingtip. In fact, we had to bank a little bit to keep it in view. And then as it went kind of off toward the Cascades, it burned out and it started to break up. You could see the yellow kind of, flash off in all directions. And then it faded and was gone.
Yes.
That's the first thing I've ever seen of that size or that intensity in the sky. But I immediately thought it was a meteor or something burning out. It wasn't like a falling star. It was going horizontal. It wasn't losing any altitude.
Yes.
And the other pilot, who has 2,000 or more hours flying, just got back from a trip to Tokyo, said that he'd estimate with it slightly above horizon level, and that far off could have been 60 to 90,000 feet. Maybe, 70,000 feet would be his best estimate. And that if that thing burned out and dropped, and say it would be probably been over the Cascades, it was kind of headed on a trajectory we figured parallel to us. Might have landed someplace like Grand Coulee if it landed at all. But that's the trajectory kind of from, say, Bellingham to the Coulee Dam would be parallel to our Yakima to Seattle, and it looked like it was paralleling. It could have been going more west to east. In other words, staying up, parallel to the border.
Yes.
It's very possible to detect. But it wasn't coming anywhere like toward us because we had no, fear like anything was going to happen or was going to get near the city.
Right. And what was the approximate time, would you say?
Between 6:25 and 6:30. 6:35. It'd be about 6:30. It would be, and that's accurate because it's between two checkpoints.
I see. Okay, well, this is very interesting because we got another report from a woman in Slope Lake, in the Slope Lake area, that said that she saw something about 6:25, which was traveling approximately west to east or northwest to southeast, and it burst in the area over there. It looked like one of these large aerial bombs going off.
That would be about where I would say it could have terminated. I tell you, you could check with Seattle Ground Control. There were 3 other pilots confirmed it on the air. We didn't. There was a Northwest Airlines flight pilot. Northwest Airlines, if you got a bright object on your radar, he asked. And United Airlines said, I see it too. United Airlines, I also have it in view. And then a fellow who was using a twin Comanche. He was commenting on it. They carried on a little dialogue with ground control. The ground control said they didn't have it on, nothing showing on radar. I could have been a distance away, short distance away. But there'd be 3 other pilots that verified it, and it would be someone, and they would have to have been on instruments, so they would have had to file a flight plan, and I know one was Northwest, one was United, and one had a twin-engine Comanche.
Yes.
I don't know the destination. Ours was Boeing Field. I assume the other 2 were SeaTac, going and coming. But,
would you say that would be in sight long enough for radar to pick it up?
I don't know that much about radar. It was really moving. We knew it was a long ways away, 100 miles or so, or, 50 to 100 miles. It was out there. It was nowhere near us, and it went from the front of the plane right on back, kind of toward behind the plane.
Yes.
Which would have to be, knowing you'd have to be 150, 200 miles. Just a second. Somebody doesn't know I'm on the line.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Fine. I wonder if the other two gentlemen who were with you would object to my contacting them.
Oh, I doubt it. I've got, just a second, I've got somebody on the other line.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, just a couple more questions. In your opinion, would you consider this a meteor, considering the time that it was in sight?
Yeah, it was too large to be anything else. I mean, it was, although I've never seen a good-sized satellite, I guess I don't know how large they are, but this was one good-sized mass. I've heard of satellites coming in and burning on entry. I don't know how large those satellites are, is what I'm saying. It would be something, I would say it's a meteor, yeah, because, I thought it was a comet.
Yes.
When I first saw it. That would have been my, but comets are in sight, as I understand it now from doing more research since I saw it, they're in sight much longer.
Yeah, so they don't move like meteors anyway.
No, this thing was moving. So then, based on what I found out since, in fact, when we saw it burn out and disappear, I said that must have been a meteor.
Now, I know there's a newsman here in town who'd like to talk to you. Would you be interested in talking to him?
Sure.
And then you wouldn't object if I passed your number on.
No, not in the least.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Good.
Goodbye.
Bye.
I wonder if I could get a rundown on that little experience you had the night of the 14th.
Yeah, okay. Did you get hold of Steve?
No, I couldn't get through the office. The phone was busy, and then I tried to get his number from information.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, we were flying along at about 900 feet between Bainbridge Island and Seattle.
Yes.
Right, I was about the midpoint northern tip of Alki. And all of a sudden you seen this bright thing come across the sky. And it looked like, on a flight path, you might say it would look like it had come out of, say, Kingston heading for, Seattle.
Yes.
Okay. It had a long, flaming tail on it. Like a jet or something,
Yes.
Okay. And it proceeded along this and heading towards Seattle. And we noticed at first it was probably right midpoint Puget Sound, in between the two. And we both watched it real careful. And I called King County Tower on the radio and notified them that I had seen it. I wasn't sure what it was. It seemed to have a body to it, kind of I don't know.
A glow?
Yeah, a main glow in front, and then, with the trail behind it.
Yes.
Right. It stayed on its normal trajectory, heading towards the Ballard area. And then all of a sudden, as it got over towards the Ballard area, it really glowed. It just really came on strong. And the tail seemed to die off, and then it disappeared.
I see. Now, did you get a pinpointed time on that?
It was between 6 and 6:30, I can tell you that, definitely. But King County Tower would have my conversation on radio. Because you're supposed to record all conversations. And when I talked to them, I told them, and they said, well, they'd get in touch with the proper authority.
Yes.
So if you probably contacted the FAA, they would have that on transcript, exactly what time it came through.
Yes. How about altitude of that object? Do you have any idea?
It was probably, I was looking through the cockpit there. So it was probably sitting away from 1,000, right around 1,000 feet, a little higher, maybe 1,200 to 1,000 feet.
And that was, in other words, you wouldn't have to look up
No, I
Or
did not
if I
look
could
at
see it.
No, all I did was look right out the side of my helicopter and we seen it. And it never did appear like it had, closed or anything like this. It just all it was, really glowed real bright and then that was it.
Well, now, we had another call. I thought you'd be interested in this. We had another call from a party living on Queen Anne Hill, overlooking the water.
Yeah.
And he was watching the news between 6 and 6:30. He couldn't pinpoint the exact time, but he said he spotted this thing coming down the sound, almost due south, north to south. And he said it got almost abreast of Seattle, due west of Seattle, as he saw it, and the thing seemed to make a 90-degree turn and just headed east.
Well, that could have been very well, but like I say, that would put it on a southerly course if it was heading towards out of towards the Kingston area, heading towards the Ballard area. It would be on kind of a southerly course. But when we seen it, it was more or less heading over towards an eastbound heading, because it was, you might say it was flying west.
Yeah. What would you say the duration of the sighting was? From the time you first saw it until it just blinked out?
Probably a good solid minute. Minute, maybe more.
You didn't hear any other air traffic on that?
No, I even asked Power in my conversation if anybody else had sighted it, because there were other aircraft in the air at the time. And in fact, it was kind of hard to watch this thing and keep an eye out for other aircraft, because I was paying more attention to the thing that was going through the air, whatever it was. Have you found any debris or anything out in that area?
No. You see, there's a conflict here. We know we've got two different objects for that night, and possibly yours could be a third.
Oh.
And we're trying to pin it down exactly, get the times as exact as we can to get this jigsaw puzzle put together. But we know there's two different objects. One was seen running about 6:20 to about 6:25, and the sightings range almost in a straight line from northwest up to Vancouver Island and on into BC, southwest or southeast over to the Grand Coulee area. Then we have your sighting, which is much lower altitude.
Yeah.
And then there was a third one, which involved the so-called impact area down around Centralia and Chehalis.
Yeah. Well, do these meteorites, when they come in like that, do they bust off at times? I don't know about it.
Well, occasionally a large bolide, which is really a large piece of junk, will explode. But usually when they do, why, they're heard for miles. The flash is just fantastic. So I doubt that's what we're dealing with. And of course, they usually only last 2 or 3 seconds, maybe 5 seconds up to the most.
Oh, I see. Oh, this lasted longer than that. Yeah. Because I covered quite an area just in my helicopter. And my co-pilot, he was watching it the whole time too. But like I say, you could really pinpoint the exact time if you contact King County Tower, or actually contact the FAA down on Bowling Field, or King County Field now. And they're supposed to transcribe all that stuff.
This object was traveling in a horizontal trajectory?
Yeah, kind of a, I don't know, say you were at 1,200 feet, and it kind of looked like she was heading down towards Seattle, towards the Ballard area, and then, poof, it just was gone. But I could see that, at least I thought, I didn't think it crashed.
Yes. Okay, now if we send you a short questionnaire, would you have time to fill it out?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Yeah, Bob, this is Chip over at Figure Out. How you doing tonight?
Oh, busy.
I bet you are.
What's new down there?
Well, you know, I lost in all the confusion that was here last night. I lost the names and numbers of those hunters that you'd had.
Okay, coming up.
Okay. Well, what luck have you had in plotting this thing?
Oh, we're coming up. Putting the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together. We know we've got 2 and possibly 3 different objects. And I'm waiting now for some questionnaires to come back for what I need is final time and the directions, the flight directions. Right. And when I get those put together, well, I think we'll be coming up with as many as 3.
Does it look like a lot of the stuff took place between 6 and 7?
The majority, it took place between 6 and 30.
6 and 6:30.
Yeah, and then that impact business down there in Rancho, we're going to really have to dig into FAA for that to get that times and the different information reported by those airline pilots. Because apparently there weren't too many people on the ground that saw that.
Well, we couldn't find, we talked to a few people, we couldn't find anybody who saw it down there near Sahelis. It was just evidently seen by these pilots. But what makes me, I do believe there's a good chance something went down there is that, you know, the pilots that did see it go down, at least according to Fort Lewis, did say it appeared to explode at low-level elevation. And of course, then there's the pilot who says it definitely was a crater-type object, you know.
Yeah.
And I went down there, when we were flying down there Friday, looking all over, I saw, you know, about 3 or 4 flash burns. But if I was flying in an airplane and I was a military pilot, if I saw something that, you know, appeared to be a flash burn in a heavily wooded area like that, or appeared to be any kind of a burn, I don't think I would say it was definitely a crater, unless, you know, I could actually tell it was a crater, you know?
Yeah.
And the flash burns we saw didn't look anything like a crater. You know, they just had a bunch of wood piled on top of each other, and they were just burning away.
Yeah. Well, I listened to the description given by that Army helicopter pilot, and he didn't seem to think it was a flash burn.
Yeah. So I hope, as soon as there's them, as soon as we get some good weather down there, we're going to go back down for one more look, and I sure hope it comes about pretty soon.
Say, you know, I got a call this morning from a Dannington. Did anyone forward information to you on that?
No, not that.
Okay, well, he said he called KJR early this morning, and they gave him our number, and he was calling from Seaport, Washington. And he's in the Navy up there, stationed at the Naval Barracks in Seaport. And he said he saw an object came down and just scared the hell out of him about 6:20 or so, let's see, 6:10 this morning. He said it was about 200 feet off of the ground.
You're kidding me?
Yeah. I thought maybe that you would have got it, being that he called in there first.
I'll be damned. Well, that must have possibly been somebody. I'll be damned.
And I've been so busy I haven't been able to get back to him. But I'll tell you, when I was talking to him, his voice was still quivering. He says, boy, that thing just scared the shit out of me.
Well, I'll be damned.
Apparently it came down real low, and it was moving fairly slow, and the glow around the object went out so he could see a little bit of the superstructure.
Did he say it appeared to be a craft?
Yeah, he said some kind of a rectangular shaped object with louvers on it.
With what on it?
Louvers.
I'll be damned.
I also got a hold of that doctor.
Oh, you did?
You want his phone number?
Yeah, as long as you got it there.
Okay. And he said he'd be happy to talk to the newsman.
Yeah, I was wondering what his number was. We did get a couple of nice comments on tape from him.
Good.
So, I wish we individually here had more time to run this thing down. It's just that, you know, with being here and having to get the news on, it just doesn't leave too much, afterburner energy.
Right. It takes a lot of investigation.
Oh, God, it is all there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, as soon as the weather clears and moves up on down there, I'll make sure that you're one of the first to know what if anything we have to run across. But I I have a feeling right now that if anything was down there, I have a hunch whoever officially was in charge of looking for it may have gotten there and gotten out what they wanted to. Because I do know that restriction across the area just came and went awfully mysteriously.
Sure. Well, they could send the ground party and there was no problem.
Well, the problem with that is that they didn't have it pinpointed, not exactly. They had it in with a very large square mile area. And it is rugged country up there, and you probably could stumble around for a couple of days without ever running across it, you know.
But take this into consideration. They can go in there for the copter. They've got sophisticated cameras now with infrared, and even if the thing had landed and taken off within 24 hours, they could go in and take a picture and still know it was there, or had been there.
Yeah, that's true.
So, who knows what they're going to do?
Yeah.
They're not talking as usual.
Well, that's interesting. Okay, Bob, we'll check back out with you later on.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Yeah, Bob, this is Chuck.
Yes, sir.
How you doing tonight?
Not so bad.
You looking forward to Thanksgiving?
Oh, you bet.
You get tomorrow off?
Nope.
Oh, you kidding.
Working days.
Oh, son of a gun. Well, it's funny, but I'm going to get the first Thanksgiving off I've had in 4 years. So I'm kind of excited about that. Well, I was just getting ready to leave here, and I thought I'd give you a buzz. Figured that I was on the phone today for a couple of hours to the supervisor that worked at the FAA Flight Control Center that night, the 14th, and I also talked to, I forget the guy's capacity, but he works in an area of support to the radar man.
Yeah.
And I talked to them, and for the first time since this whole thing began, I'm convinced that something did now go down in that general area, did impact, did cause a crater and some sort of a fire. And I also talked to the pilot, Rich Morgan, again tonight. And I think the problem is that, number one, everybody is looking in the wrong area. I think they blew $1,000 worth of helicopter rides to nothing. We were looking in an area just east of Chehalis, but was really, I think, just about northwest, or north or west, or whatever it is, of the area where we saw this thing. And we were just a little bit too far, what would it have been? Too far south. Too far south, yeah.
Like 13 miles south.
Well, whatever it would be. I haven't really had a chance to sit down with a map yet. So anyway, we were just a little bit off the track there. And I'll tell you, I don't know how the hell that happened, because we got our bearings from McCord that day, who vectored us in, and they told us that was the area, and all the other news people and choppers that day seemed to be searching in the same area, so I just wonder if perhaps somebody vectored us off in the wrong area on purpose.
I mentioned it to one of the fellows the day after when they just started the search, and they came to a location from the McKinnon area south, and I said it sounds very much to me like somebody doing a little bit of job in here.
Well, there's just, there's still just a lot of things that don't gel. Now, maybe somebody made a mistake or whatever. We were in the general area of McKinnon, Cinnabard area, that type of thing, but I don't think we were going to have seen it go down. Anyway, one of the interesting sidelights that occurred today was that on the Friday, I have an appointment there with one of the supervisors at the Flight Control Center and all, and I'm going to be listening to tape of radio transmissions that night. And so that may shed some light on.
Well, you've got good connections out there.
Well, it took me an hour and a half, two on the phone to get through all the red tape to find out that, I was aboard.
Yeah. Did you get all this conversation on tape tonight?
No, I didn't. And then what else? And then I'm going to see if I can work out a deal with commanding officer the next time they run a training flight. If they can, as a courtesy to the old news media, run us by, see if we can spot that area, see if he can take me back to where he saw this thing.
Yeah, well, is he still insisting that he saw something on the ground?
Oh yeah, and the three people who were in his chopper, his co-pilot and navigator and the other guy, and they all saw this thing. And I asked him, now he says, Now he changed the story a little bit. We had him last time saying definitely it was a crater. Now he says, well, to all rights, it looked to him like a crater, although it could have been a flash fire. I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, you know, I see from that height and in the dark, I suppose there's a chance that it could have been that. But he says, that's not what it looked like to me. He says, that night when we were going out there to look for this thing, we saw 3 flash fires before we saw it made this sighting, and they looked different than the crater-like object that we described.
Yeah. Well, how about the FAA? Did they say anything about tracking anything going down?
They said nothing was tracked, no. Nothing was tracked on radar. I will double check that Friday when I go out there. But also what was interesting was that 2 pilots, 2 private pilots were the ones that had seen this thing go down. They'd seen a large white flashing object or whatever, not flashing, but, you know, a large bright object. They see the crash, and it appeared to explode at low level elevation or appeared to have impacted with the ground. And it was at this point that they were, you know, talking about the parts of the FAA. So the FAA told McCord and asked him to send a chopper out. Well, McCord, I guess evidently got in touch with Fort Lewis, and that's where Rich Morgan came into play. And so that's how all of that happened. But the chopper, but the first fixed-wing civilian pilot indicated to the guys at the FAA that he knew a flash fire when he saw one. He said he worked for the Forest Service, and that what he saw was definitely not a flash fire. Earl, I forget his last name, but Earl somebody, I have it in my notes, who was supervising that night. I asked him, you know, what he thought about it all. He's been there 20 years. And he says, well, they are satisfied from the eyewitness accounts that were flying around that night that whatever it was not a flash fire. He did say that they got some EPR or EPI signals that night, and what that is that's an emergency locator transmitter.
Right.
In case the plane goes down. And at first they had feared that it might have been a plane that went down. Well, of course, no planes that they know of have been reported down. And they were sporadic signals, they couldn't really pinpoint them or anything. So that was the original purpose for the helicopter. So anyway, that's where it all stands now.
That's very interesting. That someone didn't make a mistake to you regarding picking up heavy static, did he?
Well, he did say he tried to talk with Lewis County. He said that they do have an all-purpose frequency band because they are an emergency action helicopter. In other words, they work out of Fort Lewis on a if there's a national disaster or somebody's lost or any kind of emergency help is needed, that's the type of flights they fly. Yeah. And he did say that they have a all multi-purpose band that they can call anybody with. And he called the Lewis County Sheriff's Office and tried to get him to send somebody out there, but he did say there was a lot of static and stuff on the radio that night.
That's important too.
Now, what does that signify?
Well, when UFOs are in the area, they have a tendency to create terrific radio interference in the form of either partial disruption or complete disruption. And it is usually noticeable at first in the form of heavy static. The thing that impressed me was when that thing first came on the air the next morning and he described this thing on the ground as looking like a big oval, brilliant in the center and like fire around the edges. And he's seen this thing through a cloud layer 3,000 feet up.
I am sure now. I mean, I wasn't sure before, but I am sure now that something something did hit the ground out there. And I just wish to God that this thing goes on, we can at least pinpoint where it was, if indeed it did hit. There's just so much damn country out there, you know. I wasn't sure whether he'd be able to find it again. He did say that he could vector himself into the general area that he was searching that night, but he didn't know if he'd be able to find it again because it was dark. He couldn't identify the type of terrain he was over, except that it was hilly. So I'm hoping that my next step is that I'll be able to talk to his commanding officer and to letting me go with him the next time we have a training flight in that area, and then let us just sit on over there during this thing to take a look for it.
Well, I'm very inclined to think that if you do find the spot where it came down, instead of finding a crater, you're just going to find a big impression in the ground, maybe with some burned or scorched areas around it.
Oh, that would be something. Anyway.
Because we get back to some of the evidence that usually shows up with any kind of a meteor or a bolide impact, such as the sonic boom when it's coming in and the seismic activity and so forth. And none of this stuff has showed up at all.
Well, you're sure that no seismic activity has showed up?
No, I checked with the University of Washington. They said absolutely nothing. And that area up there is saturated with seismic.
Well, that's very interesting. That's very interesting.
And I asked the man specifically if anything had hit of any size could be a crater which has been described, or even slightly received as that crater, if it would register. And he said absolutely no question it would register.
I'll be dying.
And then the bolide come in, and it's really big. They make one hell of a sonic boom.
Well, what have you been able to determine? Anything new or anything startling?
No, just what I passed on the last time we talked, that there's definitely 4 different objects seen in 4 different places at 4 different times now.
Bob, do you suppose I could get you to send me a summary of your activity on this trip?
Oh, I'm writing up a report right now.
You are?
Yeah.
Are you going to include any kind of a map or anything with it?
It would be a marked map.
Okay.
Very definitely.
Well, can I get you, when you get down, I have to send you a copy of it?
Absolutely.
And everything that you can have on that stuff, because that will be a great help to me as I continue on with this thing.
Will do.
Do you have any, do you know any people down in the Sahilus area, or the McKinney area, around in that area that, if we got this thing decently pinpointed, and perhaps couldn't get in with a chopper, could help us look down there?
No.
Okay.
Our closest contact was down in Longview.
I see. Okay. I just thought I'd check that out. When do you think you'll have your report done on it?
I'm going to try to have it out by Monday.
I see. Is this coming out in the regular newsletter?
No, it'll be separate. Special report on this particular incident.
Who gets copies of this, by the way?
Well, I thought I'd mail them out to all the news media. But I'll get yours out first if you want to.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
We'll do that.
Okay.
Where are you working Monday?
When am I working?
What hours?
Oh, I work on the air from 5 until 11. And then I usually have 3 hours during the day that I just usually use up my own time. So,
well, if I get this thing finished, I'll deliver it in person.
oh, well, that'll be fine. Gary West, I don't know if you're familiar with Gary, but he works here in the afternoon. Les works here in the morning. And, just pop in and drop it in, that'll be more than fine.
Will do.
Okay, Bob, we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, well, I sure appreciate you letting me know what's going on.
You betcha.
And have a nice day tomorrow.
Yeah, if I get that, when I listen to that tape, I'll see if I can tape it with my machine and take it from there.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Oh, I was going to ask you, did you ever complete and get typed out your results of the investigation of the 14th?
Just finished typing it tonight, and I'm going to get her on the mimeograph tomorrow.
Oh, good, good. I spent all day one day out at the FAA Flight Service Center in Auburn. Right?
How'd you make out?
Well, I finally got through that tape, and they let me listen to the tape that night. Then they also let me run off a copy of it. And I have conditional permission to broadcast. And what I have to do now to get the final permission is they would like to hear what we're going to do with it.
I see.
And their concern naturally is that we don't make misuse of the tape.
Right.
In other words, give somebody the impression of something that didn't happen.
Right.
So I still have yet to type out the rest of the story. And what I'm going to do is just do a recreation of that night and let people know what happened at what time. And it's interesting that one of the supervisors out there, who was kind of handling me that day, as you say, oh, he just tried to, poo-poo the whole thing, and there was really nothing. And he'd listen to the tape, and there was nothing on there. The tape is very significant. There were at least, I can't remember, so I got all the information at home. There were 4 or 5 aircraft involved. And here's how it all developed. If you interested,
Definitely.
Okay, here's how it all developed. The first call came in about 7:48. Now, when I say the first call, I'm saying the first call regarding this McKenna thing.
Yes.
Earlier in the evening, they had reports of what had been described evidently by pilots as high-altitude meteor showers, which are evidently a fairly common occurrence.
Yes.
And now these reports were about 5 o'clock that night. Then at almost 7:48 on the nose, if I recall correctly from my info, the first report came in from a small private craft identifying himself on the tape as 20 X-ray. And he was flying in that area near McKenna, flying in a, what was it, a southerly there? No. Well, I forget the direction, but he was, approaching the Seattle Flight Services area that they're responsible for.
Yes.
And he called in, he says, 20 X-ray calling Seattle Flight Center. It looks like something just exploded off my right wingtip. And they asked him if it looked like an aircraft, and he said he couldn't tell. And then a United commercial jet, evidently flying up from Portland. The captain calls in and says, this is United Flight, whatever it was. Reaffirming that Seattle Flight Center, all 3 of us saw it. Looked like it was an explosion either on the ground or I think a low-level elevation. And then 20 X-ray butts back in and says, well, it was high in the sky when I saw it. Okay, at this point, Seattle Flight Center thinks that maybe a plane might have gone down. Oh, during this time they're describing what appear to be fires down below.
Yes.
No, wait, I take that back. That's later. So at this point, the FAA is concerned that a plane might be down, and so they ask him about fuselage and did it look like a plane or whatever. Then Seattle Flight asks the United pilot if he can look over on his left because he is flying parallel to 20 X-ray. And 20 X-ray saw this on his right wingtip. So he asked the United pilot, who is flying in a parallel direction, only quite a distance apart, if he can look to his left and see anything on the ground. To which he says, yeah, it looks like 3 fires down there, one big one and some smaller ones around it. Okay, at this point, another private craft comes in and says, hey, I heard you guys talking about this fireball thing that I saw to my east. And then the Seattle Flight comes on and says, no, sir, that would be in a different direction from where you're at. And he comes back on very distorted, but you can make him out, and he says, well, I saw a fireball fall out of the sky. Okay. So then Seattle Flight Center starts getting some sporadic ELT transmissions. You know what those are?
No.
Okay, that's an emergency locator transmitter. And that is FAA, all planes are required by law to carry these things. And upon impact, they go off and give off a signal if they're working right, so that rescue craft can find a downed plane. So they start getting some sporadic emissions, which is a fairly common occurrence, but nevertheless they never take any chances,
Yes.
They always got to find, try and find out, sometimes a pilot will jam something against one, they'll go off and all sorts of stuff. So at this point, with what the pilots saw and the sporadic beeps, they're really kind of thinking a plane might be down here. So then there is another private craft. Oh, by the way, and then during this time there was another commercial liner, I believe it was a Northwest Orient, who also confirmed the fire on the ground business. Okay. And then they go on by and go about their business. The United pilot is asked to swoop down as low as he can see and tell him what he sees. So at an elevation of 10,000 feet and descending, he gives his description of the fires below. Now, you know, he's still pretty high up in the air. And he then plots he gives the Seattle Flight Center his coordinates so that they can plot the area where this thing is.
Yes.
Okay. So then they're gone. Then another private craft, I believe he's identified as Gross 54, comes onto the scene. He tells them, he tells them he can see the fire and stuff, and they ask him, now they're thinking heavy, it's a plane down this time, they ask him if he would be kind enough to dip down in and see if he can take a look. Okay. He does, and now at this point, the only two people who got fairly close to what it was on the ground was this guy in, I forget his identification, what he identified himself as. Well, I think it was 26 Quebec. 26 Quebec, and later on, the Fort Lewis pilot were the only two guys that got in low enough, right? Well, this is what happened. Anyway, the other four planes were up pretty high. But 26 Quebec says, yeah, he'll go down and take a look. So I guess he swoops down to about, 4,000 feet or something. And lo and behold, he gives the same, almost to a T, the same description that he gave the military pilot. He comes on and says, he says, whatever it was, whatever it hit, must have gone in vertical. He says if it was a plane, it went in vertical, because it looks like there's some sort of looks like it gutted out the area, looks like kerosene or some kind of fuel burning. He says, what else did he say? He says, this is the point where he says, I've seen a lot of slash fires, and that's no slash fire.
Oh, is this the one that had previous experience with the Forest Service?
Well, evidently, yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy that says, I've seen a lot of slash fires, and that's no slash fire.
Okay.
He says the area is pretty gutted out down there, and I can't remember if he used the word crater or not, but it was, it was obvious to him at 3,000 or 4,000 feet that it was not a slash fire, and that there was some kind of a hole in the ground, or what appeared to be a hole, which is the same description that he gave, and the three crewmen who were aboard the chopper talked it over, and that's the conclusion they came to, that it was some sort of a crater. And this guy in 26 Quebec were the only pilots that night who went down close enough to get any kind of a look at it. And their descriptions match up almost to a T.
That is good.
And the next thing I found out, the reason why nobody found it the next day, including us, is that we were looking in the wrong area.
Well, should you have been looking further north?
No, well, we were northwest of where, according to this United Airlines pilot, he saw this thing.
Yes.
And the elevation of the peaks around there does not correspond with the area that we were looking at.
Would that put it about 13 miles south of McKenna, the original? Where they should have been looking?
I've got the coordinates at home, and I can't. I think that sounds about right. I've got the coordinates in pilot talk.
Yes.
I don't know physically where that place is at. I know I've got the coordinates written down in pilot lingo.
Yeah.
But I do know that we were a good 4 to 5 statute miles out of that area.
Right.
We never looked. We should have looked. See, what's opposite of north-northwest? South-southeast?
Yeah.
Okay, we should have looked more south-southeast.
Well, the reason I mentioned that was because when I talked to the FAA information officer, he gave me about 4 different locations that they had.
Well, I'll tell you, as far as I can determine, we were down there the next day in a helicopter, and there were 2 other helicopters, the Fort Lewis Sheriff's Office, and I think a news AP had a helicopter down there, and we were all looking in the same area, which is not the right place, according to this United pilot, who radioed in his location at the time he was directly over this thing. Now, granted, he was descending at the time he gave his location over this thing, but they tell me at the FAA that would have put us within a mile of it.
Okay, now here's an important point, too. I was reading some statements made by some of the astronomers who came out here to investigate this thing, and they all stated to the man that there is no case on history where a meteor has ever struck the Earth and started a fire. Well, that kind of set me back a little bit, I'd never heard of that before. So what if something struck down there, plowed in? Why, it wasn't a meteor.
Well, you know, I would tend to think that if it weren't for the description that you gave and this guy in 26 Quebec gave, I would tend to think it was a flash fire. You know, because I've been thinking about that too, and I have to agree that if a meteor probably hit, you know, number one, as you said, it would have registered on the sensors for the seismograph.
Oh yes.
Number two, it probably would have caused quite a jolt around there. You know, if there was any kind of a massive object.
Well, every person within 25 miles would have felt it.
And the only thing, one of the other possibilities is
that's why I was interested in getting a hold of that, because I tried, I didn't have any success. I wanted to find out whether he really believed he was looking at a crater.
I told you I talked to him the second time, didn't I?
Yes.
And he told me again the second time, the way they came to the conclusion that it was a crater was that they had passed 3 flash fires before they got to this one. And to him and the 3 other guys who were aboard, it looked like a crater.
Uh-huh.
And that's how they came to that conclusion, because it didn't look like the other ones.
South of the Mossy Rock Sinbar area.
Uh-huh.
And they had climbed this hill so they could get a good view of the area around it looking for deer. And they got to the top of the hill and they looked north, and here he says it was almost in a straight line between Mossy Rock and Sinbar, and he figured off into the Sinbar area was this huge glowing white object hovering above this hill right over the treetops.
Uh-huh.
And they watched this thing for about 7 minutes. Said that it remained stationary for several minutes and then it started moving upward. And he finally got the binoculars on the thing, and he said it was so big that it took in about 3/4 of the binocular view. And it moved off to the north.
We must have got a pretty good shot, a pretty good look at it then.
Yes, very definitely. Said there was a rotating band around the center of the object, and as it moved upward, it changed from white to pink to red, and as it built up speed, it got up to a bright red and then moved off to the southwest.
Did he notice any windows or anything?
No, just the light effect around it. But it moved out of the Sinbar area. Now I'm wondering, you know,
how high did he say above the treetops it was?
Right at the treetops.
Uh-huh.
I haven't had a chance to get back to him. He was calling from the job. He works for Weyerhaeuser.
Uh-huh.
And he was calling from the field, apparently because he and his boss had worked all morning trying to find an organization to report this to.
Uh-huh.
And he finally got through to us, and I'm going to call back this week to his home. He'll be back out of the field, apparently. He works with research of some kind out in the forest. And I'll go into this a little deeper with him regarding the possibility that this thing could have been sitting on the ground in that area. But,
just a second. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hold on just a minute. The more possibilities I come up with, you know, if you look at all of the possibilities, you have to include that if there was a crater, there is a possibility, because of the logging and stuff in that area, somebody may have gotten a hold of some dynamite, maybe some kids, right?
Possible.
You know, they could have just blown a goddamn hole in the ground, you know, out in the woods, just so nobody would get hurt, just to you know, blow up some dynamite. And they could have just you know, thrown about 10 sticks in and just a little long fuse and got the hell out and just blew a hell of a hole in the woods out there.
But considering the fact that it's super rugged territory, it's not very likely that
you're right. You always have to look at that.
Yeah.
There's
And
also,
of course, that particular case there is only part of the picture, because we know there were 5 objects that night, 5 separate objects at different times and different locations, and this will show up on the map I'm going to send you. And it all started just about a little after 5 p.m.
uh-huh.
And these objects, every one of them were traveling, with the exception of the one down by Sinbar, every one of them were traveling in a horizontal trajectory, and this is an extreme rarity for any kind
Well, all right, you have to look at this, too. It could be possibly that working in what's his name, 26 Quebec or whatever, what they were hovering over could have been a slash fire, a large one. Or it could have been a slash fire where they, maybe a bulldozer dug out a big hole to keep it from, spreading around or something. I just, there's just so many possibilities of what it could be. It just is, it's mind-boggling.
Oh, sure. And it could also be something sitting on the ground.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm so damn discouraged about this thing because blew $1,000 worth of helicopter rides looking in the wrong goddamn area, and I just know that, somebody's probably gotten to this thing long before now. Whatever it was.
Right.
And I'm just debating on whether to keep trying to get in there and take a look at it.
See, the big problem on that particular case was the lack of witnesses on the ground to get any kind of a triangulation. And I only know of 4. And this is rare, extremely rare for anything that spectacular coming out of the sky, even in a desolate area like that.
Hey, Bob, do you know, I don't know if you ever catch the Tomorrow program on NBC?
Occasionally.
They had an hour one night on UFOs recently, maybe a couple of months ago.
Well, that was when the airline pilot was on, or the ex-military pilot. I guess he was the airline pilot.
I believe it was. Yeah. They also had a producer on from this NBC special that's coming up.
Right.
Okay, you recall him talking about this number, this toll-free number that some government organization, I believe.
That's Alan Hynek's organization, Center for UFO Studies.
Yeah, in other words, there are only a few, agencies in various areas that have this thing. It's not a public number.
Yeah, it's just for law enforcement agencies.
Yeah, have you ever been able to get your hands on that number?
Sure, hang on.
And where is that? What city is that in?
That would be, it's in, let's see, it's in Illinois, the state of Illinois, in, I think it's Evanston.
And what's the organization?
Center for UFO Studies.
Center for UFO Studies. Do they depend on you for some of their information?
Oh yes, any organization they ask to feed to them.
Did you happen to talk to them about this incident?
One of the investigators called him.
I see, one of your people.
Right.
And had they received any calls from any law enforcement agencies about this thing?
Up to that time, they received nothing.
But after your investigator called, had they gotten anything from anybody?
No.
In other words, nobody called them about this thing?
Not to our knowledge. You see, the problem here is that this thing didn't break into the open until the McKenna story came out. And all the activity that preceded was just swept under the rug. In fact, I think the whole McKenna story would have been swept under the rug if it hadn't been for KJR.
Yeah.
That's the sad story of the UFO subject. There's another number you might want too, Chet, and that's the Department of Emergency Services in Olympia.
Department Emergency Services.
Now, the emergency number there, the reason I'm giving you this is they take the UFO reports, but the emergency number is...
And that's where?
It's in Olympia.
And what do they have to do with it?
Well, they handle the reports through civil defense.
I see. Well, I'll tell you, I got one last shot at this thing down at McKenna, and that is, I've talked to Wiggins' CO about the chance of them, on one of their training flights, letting me go along with him in his helicopter and diverting to that area to see if he could find it once again. And they gave me a conditional okay, and that he could do that if, like, for example, I was doing a story on their, massed operations down there. They could do that, which I said there's no problem. So far, I haven't heard back from him, and I was going to get I'll give him a call here pretty soon, and I haven't had a chance to. But that's about my last shot. You got to get in there with some sort of an aircraft. That's all there is to it.
Oh, that's the only way.
And I know that the station isn't about to go for any more helicopters.
Well, if it was midsummer, it'd be a different story. You could get the party together and walk in and kind of scour the area, but not.
Boy, I'll tell you, Bob. You could walk in there forever. I mean, it's so thick in places. I mean, there's a lot of logging roads, but it's so thick that shit, you could be 10 feet away from something there and all that huge forest land and not see it.
Right.
It'd be a waste of time. Unless you had it pretty well pinpointed. And, so anyway, so that's that.
There's one thing I want to find out. If we get a UFO scoop story, how do we get a hold of you if you're not working?
Yeah, this damn thing, God, I'll tell you, it irks me. I mean, it irks me that somehow, I want to believe that nobody did it on purpose, but somehow we just didn't get the right stuff, the right information to go down there and look for it. It just really irks me.
Well, let me put it this way. If something came out of the sky and that thing was tracked by McCord radar,
which they say it wasn't.
Yeah, which says possible that it was. But if it was, and they knew that there was something on the ground, an unknown on the ground, they would have sent the search parties elsewhere.
Well, that occurred to me too, but why would they, only divert us by about 4 or 5 miles? Why not 10 or 15 to really keep us away from it, or 20 or 30,
Well, with that kind of terrain and that kind of weather, you were quite a way south of the original position of 13 miles south of McKinnon.
Yeah. Son of a gun. Well.
But like I said, if they could send a helicopter over there with infrared sensing equipment, any area where they thought something came down, and even if it had left, if it had crashed or if it had landed and left, they would have known about it. So I think it's just going to end up being another one of those mysteries.
Yeah, it's possible. And it's also possible that the Air Force didn't track anything, that nobody tracked anything, and that all the Army knew about it was that Morgan had been diverted on a training flight because the FAA thought a plane might have gone down. And he went out there and he saw, a flash fire, but no fuselage or anything, and so he came back and they let him drop at that. It's also possible that they're pretty quick to cast off things too.
Yes. Policy.
Yeah. Well, it's awfully.
Well, it won't be the last incident like that to happen around here.
By the way, Bob, just diverting for a second, did your man ever check out those photographs from the family?
He presented them to some people who were supposed to be photographing experts or knowledgeable about photography. And they said that they couldn't do a thing, really. They looked suspicious, but they couldn't do a thing unless they had the negatives and had a chance to wash the negatives out and inspect them.
Yeah, right. Have they gone anything beyond that point?
No.
Okay. Why did they have to tell you why they look suspicious?
Perfection.
Too good a shot, huh?
Perfection, and the fact that the young man who took the pictures was a student of photography in school, and had all the equipment and so forth to do what would have to be done to get pictures like that. But
well, I thought they were pretty good shots myself. But the only thing that keeps gnawing about me about that is that I just don't see the mother and the daughter and the son coming in here and
given a good story.
Yeah, I mean, they got no money. They got hardly any PR out of it. And the only reason they had called here, because, we had done one story, well, actually, we did, a story one night about a couple of people who saw something near their area, and they had called in to say, you know, just a couple of weeks before, my daughter saw this thing in the sky, and she came home and got me and my son, and my son grabbed his camera, and we went back, and he got a couple of pictures of it, you know.
Right.
So it kind of evolved from that, and
well, that leaves the door open. Right.
yeah, God, I wish if you get a chance to talk to that guy, I wish you'd you know, see if he could kind of run that down and at least confirm whether or not those negatives are phony, or whether, you know, whether the pictures are phony. I just was so impressed by their, how would you say it, their average Americanish, you know, I mean, you know, you couldn't have found 3 more average blue-collar type people, I don't think.
Yes.
And,
Well, I know that he was working on that, and then this thing of the 14th came along, and that really threw us off track because we've been really hitting that pretty hard. But I'll get him on that again and see if we can't get a hold of those negatives and get some results on it.
I'm kicking around the idea that maybe I could put together, you know, with this, the reports, with the tapes of the tapes I have of the FAA Flight Control Center that night.
Yes.
I'm kicking around the idea, maybe it might not be a bad idea to put a half-hour program together. Use that as the intro, and perhaps have you with your findings following that, and then maybe we could bring in, you know, or perhaps a doctor or somebody.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that.
But that was really a special night, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it was odd. You know, I must admit, and I, like a lot of other people, are attracted by oddities. And I was the thing that I'm most amazed about is that couple from Tacoma, whose name I can't recall now, who called me, and you know, the conversation between, I guess it was Gooden and the Lewis County Sheriff's Office had splashed over. And they had heard everything right on. I found out later, except the part about the ground troops moving in.
Yeah, that was really great.
And she was damn sure that that's what she heard. And naturally, when I talked later with the Lewis County Sheriff's Office, I found out that that's what the conversation had been.
You know, the thing is, really put a lot of support under the events of that night, or at least one of the major events of that was the object that passed from the northwest to the southeast. I got several letters from people up on Whidbey Island and several from the Navy personnel up there, including the commander of a naval flight which had just landed. And they were parked on the runway at the time. And he was looking due north. He gave all the proper coordinates. And he said when this object came into view, it moved across the sky from northwest to southeast, and they watched and watched and watched and watched. And he says they watched that thing from 4 to 5 minutes. He was timing it with his clock. And he says he's never seen anything like it.
Well, I'll be damned.
And then I got one of our contacts up in Snohomish County, got a chance to talk to a lot of the sheriff's deputies that were looking for the escaped prisoners up on Camino Island at the time. And that was another object in itself there. That thing passed from due north to straight south right over Camino Island.
Going fast or slow?
Very slow. In fact, the one officer who first spotted it in the northern sky, he says at first it was 2 brilliant orange lights hanging in the sky, and then they expanded and merged, and then the thing started to move and the sparks started flying out the back, and here she came, due south, right over the island, and heading due south towards Seattle. And that's where that copter pilot McKenna picked it up, and then that student on Queen Anne Hill.
I'll be there. Well, the next step is, I guess, see if I can get a clear day and see if the Air Force will let me go in a helicopter. See if we can
He said he'd like to go out there again, just to see what it was.
Oh, that would be great. Get a nice clear day. Wow.
Well, I'll tell you. Well, listen, since that happened, have you had any other reports of anything of any kind of nature?
No, things have been real quiet around here.
Oh. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll kick around the idea of maybe putting together a half-hour program on that tape. Would you be interested in that?
Sure.
Okay, if the determining factor is time, if I can get time enough to schedule everything to do it. But I think that might be, that might be kind of fun to do.
Well, your listeners are real interested in that subject anyway.
Oh, you betcha. Every time we have something like that, it goes, crazy. That thing was, I think down in Tacoma tonight is odd. Did you ever call the two couple that I gave you the phone number?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the ones that were driving down towards Milton.
Well, she said they were out south of I-5 near Tacoma.
Yeah, just entering Milton. Right, a little community there at Milton.
Yeah, did you talk to him?
Yes.
What did you think?
Well, I tell you, he said that this object was huge. He said it was traveling under the clouds. And that I asked him, well, what about the size? How would you estimate the size? And he says, well, you could take a car key, the round portion of the car key, and hold it up to the sky and just hold it out. He says, that's about the size that thing was in the sky. This is the method used for determining size, real quick like. And that would be just about as big as your thumb out there, the end of your thumb.
That'd be pretty goddamn big.
And that is big. And he says it was low, under the clouds. And he said it came over the top to the car, almost the top, slightly to the west. And that when it got out in front of them, it just clicked out, just like snapping off the light.
What kind of colors did he give you?
Blue-green, blue-white.
Huh?
So, but unfortunately, the thing wasn't in sight long enough to really get any data out of it.
Well, that baffles me. I mean, I just can't see why they wouldn't pick up something like that on radar. Unless maybe they do and just tell me they don't. I guess it's always a possibility. But then I got a call from the one guy who said he saw it. It was a shooting star. And another guy who said he saw it, looked like a shooting star. Well, in other words, there were probably more than one or two people that saw it.
Right.
In your experience, have you ever called anybody and on something like that? Had them ever tell you that they tracked anything?
No. There's very strict regulations regarding putting out that kind of information. Not only for the military, but the FAA too.
That's something I never did ask anybody. I never did ask them if I called there and asked them about that, if they could tell me that. Something I should probably do. Well, listen, Bob, I'll be looking forward to receiving your information on that.
I'm going to try to have that in the mail tomorrow.
And I'll let you know, naturally, if I decide to put a half-hour thing together on that deal.
Great.
Okay?
Right.
Talk to you later.
Right, Jet.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes, sir.
Bob, got this thing here in the mail.
Yes.
The evening of November 14.
Uh-huh.
Bob, if I am reading the map correctly, there wasn't just one meteor, but 1, 2,
5.
5.
5 objects.
Let me ask you about that on tape. That's phenomenal,
Okay.
so to speak. Okay, Bob Gribble, Phenomenal Research. Okay, we have been told by the authorities, the Big A, that there was a meteor that crashed. First we were told in Centralia, then they started looking for it in eastern Washington. What do you think happened, and how credible is this, and how many objects were there really?
Well, actually, there were 5 objects involved. Unfortunately, the one which was supposed to have impacted with the Earth around McKenna, Washington, was the one that really dominated the activity that night. This is the particular story that was picked up by the news medias. We started getting reports at about 6:20 that evening, and the calls came in all night. Of course, we put together the pieces of this jigsaw puzzle and came up with 5 different objects instead of the one. And I think the reason that
the scientific community was not aware of these others is the fact that they were just completely ignored by the news media, or possibly the news media just did not know about them.
Okay, now why would the scientific community get so hung up on this? You know, why do you think they are, the scientific community is a little too fast to write off a UFO sighting?
Well, oh yes, I think that the majority of the people associated with the scientific community will ignore any UFO report when it appears to be a meteor. And of course, they concentrated on that particular case because they wanted to get a hold of that meteor before a time lapse. And I think that they were lacking information, whereas on that particular evening we were just getting reports from all over western Washington and certain sections of eastern Washington, and they did not have this data available to them.
See, now it's kind of a rare phenomenon if in fact there are these five objects, and it's kind of interesting that a lot of them appeared to break up and explode. Is that a normal behavior?
Well, we don't know for a fact that they did explode. According to the witnesses, they did break up. Of course, when we get a description that an object has exploded, we immediately look for this clue. Was there any audible sound? Did they pick up sound waves? And of course, in none of these cases where they broke up did sound waves occur, nor did the case in eastern Washington where it was supposed to have exploded in a very violent explosion, according to the witness, did they hear any sound waves. So, yes, it is common in the field of ufology where these objects will break up and not create any sound pattern at all.
Have you had any speculation at all what kind of an object would fly along, visible for, well, you know, in case most of them over 100 miles, and why would an object do that and then break up?
Well, we feel that it could be some kind of a monitoring missile which is attempting to pick up some kind of data in the particular area where the breakup was reported. Or we are dealing with an electrical phenomenon of some kind in which the object itself actually does not break up, but merely puts off electrical charges which make it appear that it has broke up.
Outstanding, Bob. I'm still going to get a hold of you one of these days, and we'll tape a half-hour public affairs program.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Old reports on flying saucers?
Absolutely.
20 years old?
That goes back a long way.
Yeah.
That's just about the time I got into it.
Is that right?
Right.
When I was in pilot training, there were about 500 of us saw one right across the street. Watched it for about, we sat there about 3 minutes and watched it.
And where was this at?
At Lackland Air Force Base,
Oh.
Texas.
What did the object look like?
Kind of glowed. It was a little larger than a one-bedroom house. It was sitting right over a one-bedroom house on the other side of the street. We were on one side of the street standing reveling. And I heard them say underclass on my gaze, and we looked up, and there was well, it looked like it was 20 feet across.
For heaven's sake.
Kind of glowed, kind of gave an impression of spinning.
This was in broad daylight?
No, it was just, you know, like a twilight. The sun hadn't come up yet. It was, you know, a real early reveille.
Oh, I see.
And we sat there and watched it about 3 minutes, and an upperclassman started walking across the street toward it, and it took off.
Any sound?
No. There may have been like an impression of sound, but I'm not sure any physical sound.
Uh-huh.
You know, there was maybe like an impression of a high-pitched whine, but I'm not sure there actually was any sound.
I see.
It was out of sight over the horizon in half second or second.
This, about 20 years ago.
Yeah, 1954.
54.
Yeah, it was a class of 54J pilot training.
Now, would this be in the summer or what?
Probably just before Christmas. Probably about this time of the year.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it'd be worth getting in touch with other people to corroborate that or not, but, well, it was class of 54J, and anybody in that flight, several flights there could have verified it.
Okay, what was the name of that air base again?
Lackland Air Force
Lackland.
Base in Texas. It was pre-flight training for pilots.
I see.
That was at the time, I think, somebody reported that. I never got an official word on it, but I think at the time that was reported to the Air Force, and we were told unofficially that was to be confidential.
Uh-huh.
And all of us were very careful. They were checking us on security all the time. We were all very careful not to tell anybody.
Yes, I can understand that. Well, 54 was a real big year in this country on that UFO reports.
Is that right?
Oh, yes, it was terrific.
Yeah. Well, man, we saw that plane. I mean, it was like 30 feet away.
Oh, geez.
You know.
No heat or anything?
No heat. No heat. But it wasn't like a mirage or an illusion, you know.
This thing was just glowing all over, like a big light?
It was kind of glowing. No, it wasn't glowing like a light. It was glowing more like fluorescent paint.
I see.
Or something under a black light or something like that.
Did it have any discernible shape?
Yeah, it was like two saucers.
Rim to rim?
Huh?
Two saucers rim to rim?
It was kind of like two Frisbees rim to rim.
Uh-huh.
As a matter of fact.
Rounded at the edges.
No, but it kind of went up and then something happened there. I can't remember too clearly, but there was kind of an impression that near the edge were like a row of portholes, but it was like spinning, so they came off as a line. Kind of.
I see. Well, that sounds very common.
Does it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And I don't remember the colors, but it was kind of colored. It was like grayed down purple and green and yellow or something.
And one of the parties started walking towards it, and the thing...
Yeah, one of the upperclassmen in charge of us started to walk over, got about half across the street, and it took off.
You figure it was only about 30 feet away?
Yeah, it was just a little, like, two-lane road, and we were, like, on one edge of the road, and there was a house all 10 feet from the edge of the road, and it was directly over the house, like 20 feet over the house.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was kind of scary. I was, like, a lot of us felt like we were expected to be obliterated or something.
Yes.
You know.
Well, we sure appreciate your calling to tell us about this.
Okay. I didn't know if you'd be interested in something that old, but
Oh, yes. We're interested in anything, especially a close approach like that. That's,
yeah, I thought it was a fairly rare thing to see it that close and for, 3 full minutes.
Right. Right. Well, we thank you very much.
Okay.
Please keep our number handy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye. Two months ago?
Yeah, well, it's late October.
Okay. I'd like to hear about it.
Well, I was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was asleep, and I heard this whistling noise. Can you imagine a jet in a full dive?
Yes.
Well, that's what it sounded like. And it woke me up out of a sound sleep, and I didn't turn the light on because I could pick my way through the house in the dark like I was with my eyes blindfolded, so it didn't bother me to turn the light, keep the lights off. I looked out the bedroom window, and I saw this shape. It couldn't have been more than 60 feet off the ground because it was bending over the top of one of the pine trees across the street. Mm-hmm. And it was making this whistling noise, like I said, and it was hovering there. And that in itself was remarkable. And so I went to the front door to get a better look at it. And I went to the front door, and I opened the front door, and I looked at it, and it was about 30, there for about 35, 40 seconds. And then it just dwindled, it just took off. No sonic boom, nothing. It just went. And, remember the old pictures in the old newsreels when they had a cannon being fired?
Yes.
The projectile going out of the cannon?
Yes.
And that's what it looked like.
Uh-huh.
That's the only thing I can think of that would be similar to it. And it made, as I said, it made absolutely no swooping noise, or no sonic boom or anything. There's no displacement of air when it just went. But as soon as I stepped off the porch and stepped out into full view, it just, that's when it took off.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I stood on the porch undercover, and I guess if there was an intelligence in there, it didn't see me till I moved, and then when I moved, as soon as I came out into full plain view, it took off. So I can only assume that whoever was in it didn't want to be seen, because at that hour of the morning he's going to be up. And let me see. It looked like two plates inverted over over one another. There were no lights at all I could see.
Now you say about 80 feet in diameter?
About 80 feet across, right.
Across, okay, and a dome underneath.
Underneath.
You have any idea of the size in relation to the total diameter of that dome?
Oh, the dome would be about, it was in the center, I'd say about 30, 40 feet across, about half the width of the main body of the UFO.
Okay, was that dome transparent?
Like I said, it was completely blacked out. I couldn't tell whether it was transparent or not.
Okay.
But I have no idea. It made it. The reason it made it, and I'm surprised my wife didn't hear it. I had to wake her up and tell her about it. Did you hear that whistling? She said, no, I didn't hear a thing. But that's what woke me up in the first place, was the whistling noise, like a plane in the dive.
Yes.
The first thing I thought was, hey, somebody's in trouble, they're going to crash, you know? And that's why I jumped and looked out the window. There was this thing.
Approximately how long would you say that you had this thing under observation?
Well, from the window for about 15 seconds, and after I got to the front door for about 35 to 40 seconds.
And then all of a minute altogether then?
Well, about a minute altogether, but as soon as I stepped out off the porch to get a better look at it, and I stepped out into plain view, it was gone. Snapped as quickly as I can snap my fingers. It just went. I can't say it. I won't say it. I can't really explain it to you. But
well, did this thing just move away, or did it just go off like snapping off a light?
no, it moved away.
It moved away. Okay.
It moved away like it got smaller.
Yeah. It just reduced itself down to nothing then.
In a manner of speaking, yes, but it gave the impression of being of gaining distance from
Yes.
me.
Okay. Now, about how far away would that object be from, say, your window to begin with?
Oh, just across the street.
Just across the street.
Not more than 50 feet away. The tree that it was bending the top of was about 50 feet from the front door.
Now, how about, do you have any pets?
Yes.
Did you notice that they were disturbed at all?
No, they were sound asleep.
They were asleep. And this thing was definitely just dark color.
There was no color to it at all that I could see, because, like I said, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. It was dark out, and when there were no lights, there was no coloration to it at all. It was just a map. I could see black against the sky, which had clouds in it, and it was sort of a grayish color. So that's why I could make out the shapes of it.
I see. Okay. And it was hovering over a group of trees?
Oh, no, it was over one tree,
One
particularly.
tree.
And as a matter of fact, it was so close to that tree, it was bending the top of the tree over.
Okay, let me ask you this. What kind of tree was that?
So, because of, fir tree.
Regular fir tree, okay. That question might sound a little strange, but we have picked up a pattern where these objects are seen hovering over very large individual trees.
Well, this is a pretty big tree. But it was so close to the ground. I could actually see the tree bending and the weight of whatever this thing was resting upon it.
Well, then you feel there was a contact between the two.
Oh yes, there was definitely a contact between the tree and the craft.
Okay. Then during daylight, did you take a look at that tree by any chance?
Oh, I couldn't get up to top. That's it.
I mean, there was nothing showing from the ground.
No, nothing at all showing from the ground.
Right. And no sound from this thing.
Other than the initial whistling noise
Right.
that woke me up in the first place.
Right. Okay. And this happened about October.
About the 29th, 28th of October.
Okay. And in Seattle?
No, I live in Bremen.
Oh, okay. So it's that county, isn't it?
Right.
Okay, is there anything you can add to that? No other witnesses?
No, I was the only one that saw it. As far as as I know, nobody else mentioned it. But like I said, you know, you mentioned like that to somebody else, and they look to, the eyebrows go up about half an inch.
Yes.
So I'm not surprised that if anybody else thought it, they wouldn't mention it.
Well, we sure appreciate your calling, and if I need additional information, can I call back?
Well, yes, you can, but don't call in the afternoon or evenings. I won't be home.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's about it.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you very much for calling.
Sure.
Bye-bye.